On Fox News tonight on Sean Hannity's show, Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina, who's developed a fairly close relationship with Donald Trump these past 2 years. He had this to say on the subject.
They won't give a dime to this president because they want him to fail. Walls work. Trump said, let's make a deal. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said, go to hell. He's not going to sign a bill that doesn't have money for the wall. If he gives in now, that's the end of 2019 in terms of him being an effective president. That's probably the end of his presidency.
Well, A.B. Stoddard, if the positions are right now and have been for a while, and you heard President Trump reiterate it today, $5.6 billion for a wall, and the Democratic position is the wall is a non-starter, it's immoral, $0 for the wall. To get out of this at some point and reopen the government, what is the minimum that Trump needs to show for this to tell the Republican base he got something? Is just having the fight, even if he ends up with nothing to show for it and reopens the government on Democratic terms, would that be seen as acceptable to the Republican base?
That's what's so interesting was that he pulled back from what was passed by voice vote in the Senate. Just let's punt this all until February 8th. It wasn't, I don't get any wall funding. It was just, let's not shut the government down over the Christmas holidays. And the reaction from his conservative supporters in talk radio and conservative media scared him so badly that he turned around after the senators had gotten on airplanes to go home for Christmas and changed his mind. Now he's dug in and he says it's steel slats. Then he says it's only a wall that will work. Then he says he needs the money. We need it desperately. Then he says Mexico is paying for the wall. Most of it's already been built. He is all over the place on that in this way that he usually is, where he says we'll see what happens. It could be quick, it could be long. I think he wants to give himself some room, to the point that Robert's making, that if he has to fold in the end, he's going to call whatever comes across the finish line money for a wall, even if it's $1.8 billion. And he's going to say he got other stuff and it's all going to work out fine. And he's probably in it in the fight for fighting's sake. That said, what Lindsey Graham is saying is a bit dramatic, that it could end his presidency. I don't think there's a way he's going to get what he's asking for, and I think President Trump knows that. But I do think he's just savoring the fight. He does not see a downside politically to a shutdown, even though there are downsides. He doesn't really know the cost. I think Senate Republicans will ultimately make him feel the heat on this, because they'll get sick of Nancy Pelosi passing bills on the House side and sending them over there, and they won't have a chance to vote for anything to reopen the government. But I think the president knows ultimately he's going to brand it as a win, and he's going to end it when he feels like it. But I think that makes perfect sense, that he likes to stay on offense, and he doesn't really care about the resolution. He likes the fight, and that's what he's engaged in right now.
And in fact, just on this subject, in the last few seconds, put it up on the screen, the president just tweeting out, sadly, he writes, there can be no real border security without the wall. The president making that statement again on Twitter just in the last few seconds.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.